Python errors and built-in exceptions. See, actually there are different type of errors and exceptions that are built into Python. They are raised whenever the Python interpreter encounters errors. So we can make certain mistakes while writing a program that leads to errors when we try to run it. A Python program terminates as soon as it encounters an unhandled error, and these errors can be broadly classified into two classes. One is a syntax error and the next one is logical errors. Okay, let me just see one by one. The first one is the Python syntax error. See, error caused by not following the proper structure or proper syntax of the language or the programming language is called a syntax error, or one more term we can just specify as a parsing error. And see here, dear friends, see, making this example, if a is less than 3, yeah, what it just going to do? So it just indicates that it just shows a condition, okay? After this condition, what is there, what it has to do? See, let I just execute here. Okay, an arrow indicates here an invalid syntax is there, and arrow indicates where the parser ran into the syntax error, and we can notice here that a colon, after this a colon is missing in the if statement. So if it is, see, actually to finish this line, to make a complete line or statement of this if condition, here we need a semicolon to be ended with. Okay, fine. Now let me just move on to the next one. See here, dear friends, this is a print hello. Okay, let me just execute and check with the error. Yeah, missing parenthesis in call to print. So do you mean this? Actually you have to write this exactly. See here, dear friends, as you can see, we made a syntax error because we forgot to enclose the string with parenthesis. And Python already suggested the solution that we have to, do you mean that printer is this? So let us fix it and execute it. Okay, the same, we just execute it by providing the parenthesis. Okay, it's not with hello. Okay, so let me just find. So see here, it was done. Okay, let me just move on to the next one, Python logical error, which we just say as exceptional. Okay, errors that occur at runtime, that is after pausing the syntax test, which if an error occurs on runtime, yeah, they are called exceptions or logic error. And for instance, they occur when we try to open a file that is for reading that doesn't exist. It just shows a file not found error. Or if you just try to divide a number by 0, yeah, it just specify a 0 division error. Or trying to import a model that doesn't exist, yeah, it is import error. So whenever these types of runtime error occurs, Python create an exception object. So if not handled properly, it prints a trace back to that error along with some details about why that error occurred. Okay, let's look at how Python treats these error. Okay, let me just go on to the first one. See here, dear friends, as I have already said, if you are having anything with 0 division, yeah, it just shows the 0 division error, that is division by 0. Or you can just say, yeah, see, actually we don't have any imaginary.txt in this files folder or file function, and it just say no such file or directory inside this. Okay, and this comes to that. And next, let me just have the one more error, which we just say the import error. See, actually here we are making from math import power. And see here, dear friends, there is nothing to be function to be there power inside the module of max. And how the error comes is cannot import name power from max where it is an unknown location. So there is no function called power in the max module. So it just goes with a different name, which is just a POW. Okay, so that is what the exact function name you have to provide. Okay, now next let me just make use of the thing name error. See here, dear friends, as you can see the name here. Okay, let I just execute it. Name age is not defined. See, actually first when we are just using it, it has to be defined. And from this message, it just seems that name age is not defined. Yes, it is true that we did not define an age variable, but we were trying to print it out as if we had or had declared it. Now let's fix this by declaring it and assigning with a value. I just provide it again here. Okay, so here let me just give age is equal to 22, and if I just give print age, yeah, 22 is defined. So age is already defined and then it was now printed. Okay, now let me just move on to the next one, Python index error. See, actually, we debugged the error by defining the variable name. So, in that sense, if we just have anything in the list, see, kindly, I just execute this. See, list index out of range. We are just having the list. In that list, here it is just seems to be the index error, because the list has only index from 0 to 4. So it is out of range. If you just take 5, yeah, it is out of range. There is nothing there to number 5. See here it is anyhow we know that is the list starts the index with 0. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So totally from 0 to 4 the indexes are just provided. If you want to make I can just give you two things. Okay, one, let me just provide that is within the range. Okay, yeah, exactly. Or if you want to make the same thing, sorry, okay, just I just make it. Okay, so here if I just want to be executed, yeah, here it is our range, that is within 0 to 4 the index has been provided. Or if you want to make use of anything that is need to be there in this range, yeah, let me include the th in a string. Okay, let I just give you, see. So this is what the index 5. Okay, let me just move on to the next one. This is module not found error. See, actually, if you want to import any function, or sorry, import any module, the exact module should be already present. And if not, the module not found error would just come. And see here it is not maths, maths. Okay, so it is exactly MAT. We all know that. So in actually yeah, the exact extra yes to the max deliberately and make that module not found error was raised. Okay, once let me just make it a fixation. Yeah, we just make it fix. If you want to import the max, yeah, this yes has to be removed, and here it is. This is how. Okay, fine. Let me just move on to the next one, attribute error. See here, dear friends, we know that is actually we have imported max, and we want to have a function of pi. that we have to make use of it. And when on making use of it, I think you have already identified the error. Yeah, the pi, which is in capital. See, I made a mistake again. Instead of pi, I have tried calling the pi, which is in uppercase. So function that from math module. So it rise an attribute error. Kindly have a note of it. It is an attribute error. It means that the file doesn't exist in that module. And if you want to make use of it, how you have to specify? Here it is, and instead of uppercase, I have to specify the lowercase. So we can just fixing it by changing the uppercase pi to that of lowercase pi. So we just got the output. Okay, let me just move on to the next one. Okay, see, we have declared a dictionary. Okay, we have declared a dictionary where the username is provided, age is provided, country is provided, and if you want to extract the name, yeah, you are providing the key and expecting the value to be the executed one. Okay, and the same thing here also, if I just provide the key, it has to execute the value. But see, if I misspelled anything, so here there was a typo in the key used to get the dictionary value. So this is a key error. And the fixing is quite straightforward. Yeah, let me do this. How we can just do is, yeah, kindly correctly providing COUNTRY. So here we are just making the same and expecting the value. Okay, next let me just move on to the type error. See here, dear friends, here we are able to identify that is 6 is the integer and 3 that is specified within a single quotes, which seems as a string. Okay, if we want to add the both, yeah, exactly, I am able to understand that you have identified the error. One thing, you can just make use of this plus as an integer addition or string concatenation. Yeah, exactly. So see here, as it is unsupported operands, both the operands should be equal. So it is unsupported operands. So the example above here, it just shows type error is raised because we can't add a number to a string. So first solution would be converting the string into integer, or another solution would be converting the number to a string. That is, the resulted would be 6 and 3. So let us follow and make a fixation of the two types. Okay, so first what we just do, both the things as an integer. Okay, so here we just get the addition, that is summation of the two integer. If not, let me just make both the things as an string value. And what would be the result? It's 6 and 3. Okay, next let me just move on to Python value error. See here, dear friends, here, yeah, obviously when we just get int of, we are making some typecasting and we want to just get the integer thing. So see here, dear friends, when we just execute it, what we are just getting here is, in this case, we can't change the given string to a number, because here, if this is a string to a number, what does this a is meant for? What does it meant for? If you are just providing 19 within a single quotes, yeah, you can just change that 19 as a text to an integer. But what is the value of this a that can be making as an integer? So here you just get an error, that is invalid literals. And dear friends, when just coming to the Python built-in exceptions, see here, these are all some operations that rise as exceptions. And there are plenty of built-in exceptions here in Python that arise when corresponding errors occurs. And we can view all the built-in functions by just providing this one. This is the exact syntax, and here we have just listed the some of the common built-in exceptions in Python programming along with the errors that cause them. The listed below here it is provided, and see here dear friends. First, what is exceptions in Python? See, an exception is an event which occurs during the execution of a program that disturbs the normal flow of the program's instructions. In general, when a Python script encounters a situation that it cannot cope with, it raises an exception. And an exception is a Python object that represents an error. Dear friends, see actually Python has many built-in exceptions that are raised when your program encounters an error, that is something in the program goes wrong. So when a Python script raises an exception, it must either handle the exception immediately, otherwise it terminates and quits. So when these exceptions occurs, the Python interprets, stops the current process and pauses it to the calling process until it is handled. If not handled, the program will crash. For an example, see here dear friends, let us consider a program where we have a function A that calls function B, which in turn calls function C. So if exception occurs in function C, but it is not handled in C, the exception passes to B and then to A. So if never handled, an error message is displayed and our programs comes to a sudden unexpected halt. Okay, let me know how to catching exception in Python. See here, dear friends, in a Python, exception can be handled using a try statement. The critical operation which can raise an exception is placing inside the try class. So the code that handles the exceptions is written within the except class. So we can thus choose what operation to perform once we have got the exception. Here it is a simple example. Kindly have a note of this, dear friends. In the example here, the first one operand is an integer and the second one is a string. So we could change it to any other thing, whether it can be integer or a float or anything that it add it with the number to make it work. And let me just make it, see here we are just making an execution where without any changes the second block expect will be executed. How come this happen is it just making an possibility of adding this 10 with a string, as it is not possible, it just throws an go for an except and it executes it. So, okay, fine. So, this is a simple imaginary. So, you can just change it to integer or any other float so that it can work it. Or if it is not working, it just has to throw some error message. But here we are just passing it a simple message. Okay, let me just move on to the second program. See here, dear friends. In this program, we loop through the values of the random list. As previously mentioned, the portion that can cause an exception is placed inside the try block. So if no exceptions occurs, the expect block is skipped and normal flow continues for actually for lost values. But if any exceptions occurs, it is caught by the except block, that is first and second value. Okay, let me just here I execute it and I describe it further. See here, so here what it just do, here we print the name of the exception using the x info. Okay, so this exact function inside the sys model, so we can see that causes of here we are just getting a value error, and where it one more thing just causes an zero division error. So since every execution in Python it inherits from the base exception class, we can also perform the above task by one more way. Let me just make it in the third example. Kindly have a note of it, dear friends. See what we have just made it. I just simply scroll to the top above. See here. So in this exact way, we have just done accordingly. That is to the error. We have just made an entry of where this exact class happens, and here we have included this one. Okay, so this exact module which it just get type of execution, and then it would make, so here we have just made use of the execution of info, where that execution of info it just thrown a value error and zero division error. And when I'm just making here with the class, see here dear friends, it just gives us the execution of it. I just show you what is the executed output. See here, first the class of value error, same it just occurred, and when I'm just passing to the second, yeah, again it thrown a zero division error, and at last it just entered the 2, and it shows that reciprocal of 2 is 0.5. So this is how you can just make use of some functions, and you can just import some modules to make it work. Okay, dear friends, let me just make here by using an example. Say we are just going to make use of this expector block. So I just execute and let you know. See here, dear friends, here I just want to make an user input. Here it is, so, and I just gone. Okay, let me just make it 26. Okay, something went wrong. What here it is, see here dear friends, in this above example the exception block will run, and we not know exactly what is the problem. So to analyze the problem, we can use the different type of error. What are all the errors? Yeah, let me just make it in the example file, and see what are all the errors that can be handled. But here when on execution, as it is not known what it is, it just goes for the except block, and it throws the execution of the print statement that something went wrong. Okay, let me just give here. See dear friends, if it is an error of a typo error, it can specify the typo error, or if it is a value error occurred, see here I have just specified 19, it is of 1926, and it can be of the age when we just make it born, which we have just specified here. So here if we are just specifying something more than the 200 or anything, so it just shows some errors. And here when just giving some zero division error, if you are making some division with 0, so that time here it makes an error. Okay, fine dear friends, let me just give an error that one by one. Okay, here I just want to add my name. Here it is, so, and year you were born. Okay, I just give the same okay, 19 okay, 26. And here a type error occurred. Type is what is the exact type when you just make use of this 1926. Okay, anyhow I just execute it again, and I just provide you one more execution here. let I just give 1981. And here also the type error occurred, where what is the type is in the sense here it is 2022, and what is the year you are born, that gives you in the value of number, and you are just going to make use of that. And your age is here, it has to come that in a value, and your age it has to specify, but here we are just getting typo error occurred, where we have just done something error wise. Okay, and now I just want to know what is the exact error and how we want to catch by specifying the exception occurred in this Python. See, actually in the above example we did not mention any specific exception in the except class. Okay, so this is not a good programming practice, as it will catch all exceptions and handle every class in the same way. So we can specify which exceptions an except class should catch. So a try class can have any number of except class to handle different exceptions, and however only one will be executed in case of an exception error. And see here, dear friends, a try class can have any number I have just specified here. And let me just make use of an execution by using the code. See here, here it is the one where you can just give something to make it a try, and we are just going to pass it. And if it is a value error, here it is just going to make use of that value error handling. And if it is typo error or zero division error, here it just goes on, and defaultly if nothing happens it just goes to the except block. And anyhow at least one it has to be executed, whether it is a value error or a typo error or a zero division error, or at least some other errors it has to be passed on. Okay, if it's so, how we can rise it? See, actually in Python programming, exceptions are raised when error occurs at runtime. We can also manually rise exceptions using the rise keyword. So we can optionally pass value to exception to clarify why that exception was raised. So kindly make use of this one. See here, dear friends, when we just make use of this rise keyboard interrupt. So actually, if anything, if you want, it just makes use of that rise keyboard interrupt. So here you can just make use of anything. If you interruptly just key pressed on to the top keyword, it has to rise a keyword where we can specify keyboard in interrupt. Or you can just also specify some message like that, what is the exact error. Okay, for that here we have just specified this is the exact error, and this information you are just commenting for the user or for the developer who just makes the program. So let me just make this see here, dear friends, this memory error it should comes here, and how you can just raise the exception and with a message here specifying this is an argument. Okay, and see here, dear friends, if you just want to make use of that in a try, see here, if I'm just making if I want to get an input from the user, and here I'm just getting it. If it is a positive, it is just showing, going to show enter a positive integer. And if you just provide any positive, it's just going to print the exact value, and it just moving on. Or if it is any negative, this is not a positive number, that is the exact error I have to specify, and it should be a value error. Okay, let I just execute it, dear friends, kindly have a note of it. So enter a positive integer. If I just specify -4, what it just shows, this is not a positive number. And see here, if I just want to throw it within a positive integer, it just executing it and moving on. So in some situation, you might want to run a certain block of code if the code block inside try ran without any errors. For these cases, you can use the optional else keyword within the try statement. And see here, kindly dear friends, just have a note of it. Exceptions in the else class are not handled by the preceding except class. So when on just making that else, it was not by the preceding. So here I just specified an example. And when on just making for an example, if we are just making an hello world program that is written and we are ready to run the program, and we will use the python 3 command along with the name of our program. So let's run the program. How come we can just make it? And see here, if a single try statement that can have multiple expect statement, excuse me, so this is useful when the try block contains statement that may throw different type of exceptions. So you can also provide a generic exception class which handles any exceptions, or after the except class you can include an else class, or the code in the else block executes if the code in the try. So block does not rise an execution. So the else block is a good place for code that does not need the try, that is blocks protection. So there we are just making use of this else. Okay, dear friends, let me just make use of an example with the else and we make use of it. So see here we are making use of an test file.txt. Okay, and what we are just giving is, this is my test file for exception handling, and expect IO error, which it just shows error, can't find the file or reading the file. So here, if it is not making any sense, it just goes on to the else and it shows written content in the file successfully, and going to close the file which is open. And see here, this is how it just makes. So here how this try is, if any error even though occurred, or if it is not going for this first IO error, directly it just jumps onto the else and it just executes it and it just closed on. Okay, and okay, fine, let me just make it with one more example. See here, dear friends, here we are just what is the exact is, we want to pass an odd number. Okay, here it is just going to get an input from the user, and if I just making an odd number, okay, 1, and it just say it is not a even number. And if we pass an even number, the reciprocal is computed and displayed exactly here. Okay, so the reciprocal is equal to 1 by num, and it's just going to print it. Let I just execute, dear friends. See here enter a number. Let I just make 1. Okay, what it just shows, it is not a even number. Okay, fine, let I just execute the same 12 cell again. So now I'm just entering 4, so it is a even number, and it just shows, see here, so it just shows the reciprocal of this 1 by 4, so it just prints 0.25. Okay, here what I'm just going to do is, okay, here I'm not going to enter any that is odd or even. Let I just make it 0. Okay, and if we pass 0, what we just get, 0 division error, as the code block inside else is not handling by the preceding except. It is not handled by this. So there, here we just get the error. And you can also use the except statement with no exception as defined here. See here, in this kind of try except, statement that catches all the exceptions that occurs. So if there is any exception, then execute this block, or else if there is no exception, then execute this block. So using this kind of try except statement is not considered a good programming practice, though, because it catches all exception but does not make the program identify the root cause of the problem that may occur. Okay, dear friends, and you can also make use of multiple exceptions. See here, we have just given a simple statement, the same, except it has just going to handle multiple exception, and exception 1, exception 2, exception 3. And see here, for each and every separate exception, if it is given an explanation or description, yeah, it would be fine. But if it is not going to make any particular sense, yeah, here also it is not of good programming practice, but though it just catches all the exceptions but making it into a multiple in a single statements. Okay, dear friends. Okay, see here, dear friends, the try statement in Python can have an optional finally class, but this class is executed no matter what and is generally used to release external resources. So for example, we may be connected to remote data center through the network or working with a file or a graphical user interface. In all this circumstance, we must clean up the resource before the program comes to a halt, whether it successfully ran or not. So these actions, that is the closing a file or GUI or disconnecting from network, are performed in the finally class to guarantee the execution. So you can use a finally block along with a try block. Okay, and the finally block is a place to put any code that must be executed, whether the type block raised an exception or not. So here it is the syntax of the try finally statement, and kindly have a note of it. So here it is the try, and you can also include the except to and at last the optional of finally class. And kindly have a note of it, dear friends. You can provide except class or a finally class, but not both. You cannot use else class as well as within a finally class. I just repeat it. You can provide except class or a finally class, but not both. You can't use else class as well as along with a finally class. So both the things has to be noted. And see here, dear friends, let me just go with an execution of an example. Here it is our first example. We are just opening a file, that is the test file.txt, and we are writing a statement into that file. That is, it is a text file. So this is my test file for exceptional handling. And finally, an error, that is can't find file or read file, and apart from that it is closing. And see here, if you do not have permission to open the file in writing mode, then this will produce the following result. How it is it? You can't write or find the data, or you can't just read the data. So that is what the finally. Okay, and here it is an example of the file operation to illustrate this. See here, dear friends, this is what you are just going to make use of the text file, and you're just making the encoding of this UTF -8, where this you are just going to have some file operation, whether whatever you want, whether to write it or only to read it, or even though any appending, and at last the finally is closed. So this type of construction makes sure that the file is closed even if exceptions occurs during the program. So that is what here it is mainly provided exactly in the finally class. So here the test file is closed now. Okay, dear friends, let me just make a see. Actually, in the previous session, we have just seen about a code that which provided a type error, and now let's add an additional to that. Yesterday, we have just seen this. You may remember this. Okay, so see here you are just going to enter the name and year you born, and here you are just going to give something that makes the year born thing. And after that, if there is no typo error or if there is no value error and nothing to be made some error under zero division error, what it just do, it just goes for the else and make the printing. Okay, and here what it just prints, yeah, I usually run with a try block, and at last finally we are just having I always run. And see here, dear friends, let me just make this execution. Here I'm just making my name. Yeah, it's Ajanta, year born 19. Let me just have something 26. Okay, yeah, you're Ajanta and your age is 96. Fine. Here we don't have any typo error, or even though we don't have any value error, and just we didn't have any zero division error. Sorry, it just scrolled down. Yeah. So apart from that, it just went on to the else part, which is a mandatory to work it out, and then finally it had the run. And see, it is also shortened this number of lines into a simplification of code, and here it is. And here what it's just going to do, kindly have a note of it. The same thing where you are just going to write the name, you are just going to give the year, and with the command that you are Ajanta and your ages. Okay, and if you are having any exception, yeah, that going to be happen in E, and it would be printed. And here apart from this else, or finally here we are just giving the except, and as I have already told, except and finally should not be coming, both should not come, any one it has to be come. And let me just execute. See, the same number of codes, now it is simplified. Okay, and 1926 again, same. Yeah, here it is. Fine. Let me just move on to argument of an exception. See, actually, an exception can have an argument, which is a value that gives additional information about the problem. The content of the argument vary by exceptions. You capture an exceptions argument by supplying a variable in the except class. Let me just see as how it can be happen. See here, dear friends, here it is a function where you are just making a temp conversion, that is the conversion of a temperature, and here it just going to return the value. If you are just going to give something in xyz, and that is going to make it in the int, and see here it is a temp conversion, and here you are just providing the string value, and here, as surely we know that this is here for temperature conversion we have to give a number, that is an integer. So even though you are just making it in the typecasting of integer, here it is in string where the argument does not contain numbers. Okay, so that is what it just going to have, and even though it is just going to with an argument, let us just execute it. See here, dear friends, the argument does not contain numbers, that is what here it is providing. And next, invalid literal for int with base 10, where here it just gives you the exceptional value error. Okay, this is how you can just make argument for an exceptions. Okay, next coming for rising an exception. See, you can rise exception in several ways by using the rise statement. And here it is the general syntax for the rise statement, that is the rise and exceptions. And here it is the argument, next comes the traceback. And here exception is the type of exception. For an example, name error or type error, value error or zero division error, that is the exact thing. Okay, so here the exception, here it is the type of exceptions, and the argument is a value for the exception argument. and the argument is optional. If not supplied, the exception argument is none. Okay, that is what the exact syntax would understand in the way. And the final argument trace back is also optional, where this optional and used, rarely used in practice, and if present is a trace back object used for exceptions also. Okay, let me just see it with an example. See here, dear friends, here we are having a function name, and let me just be the level. And what is the level? Yeah, here if the level is less than 1, it just has to rise an exception. And see here some codes that it would not be executed even if we raise the exact exception. So here returning the level, and see here, dear friends, this is what the exact try except block, and where the function name is the function that is called with an argument of that is attribute as -10. And here once on calling, it just goes here, and with it is -1, it just rises a level and make it in a return level. And see here it just makes the return level of it. And if not, if it is going for the exception, it just jump on to the exception, where what is the exception? Error in level argument, where what is the argument? And it just gives the exact attribute. And as we know, yeah, less than 1, so here it is in negative. Surely we are just going to expect the error, and here it is error in level argument. And what is the exact argument? It is -10.